I'm Fran, Global Head of Demand Gen at Cognism. I'm with Liam, our VP of Marketing, and we're going to talk to you about how you would nurture your ebook audience. So Liam, quite simply, if you were to release an ebook gated, how would you nurture that audience?
Yeah, so if the ebook is gated or you have a gated element to the ebook, like an ebook, like a content upgrade within there or something like that, then you can get hold of like some of that audience's contact information, which then means you can run email nurtures or a traditional email nurture program. Now, the way we like to think about email nurtures is not just to then send them, information that's like straight about your product or additional sort of like information that would just get, maybe one day they'll receive an email that, they feel is relevant to them and the next day they don't, but then they miss it. We try and account for that. And the best way of doing that is to think about doing what we would call on-demand nurtures, where you can take people back to a different, a same live experience that allows them to sort of consume that information as and when they want, like on demand. They get the first email, but they can actually consume the information from the second, third, or fourth all in one go on demand. As you would when you go on Netflix, you can watch the whole season all in once, or you can just watch one episode at a time. We've actually got some really good examples of how to build out those sort of on-demand nurtures, and because I know they're kind of like an alien concept to a lot of people, so definitely go and check that out. And then obviously with all of the information that you have from having people's contact information, you can move beyond just nurturing via just like email, and you can use that to sort of do other outreach as well because you have now got their contact information, whether you take that to doing digital advertising. If your list is big enough, you can create matched audiences and nurture people online in that way as well. So there's lots of different ways that you can make use of that contact information that you collect, rather than just maybe going straight into sales conversations. If you do then nurture them by calling up from an SDR as well, you just want to train your sales team to be able to talk about the ebook really well and actually have a really informed conversation. I think that makes a big difference, rather than just having those conversations where it's straight from maybe just understanding that they downloaded that content to a sales pitch, but maybe more of a consultative approach where the rep can talk, strongly about the content and interact with the prospect in that way.
Okay, great. So if sales are following up on these leads and when the marketing team are briefing sales, what's the best way for them to go about that? Because presumably sales aren't going to read the ebook from cover to cover.
Yeah, and I think you want to be able to create a sort of a brief or a summary for the sales reps to be able to quickly get through, to be able to get to grips with the content and the pain that it solves their prospects and the reasons why they'd be interested in reading it and being involved in it. I think if you've created lots of different content assets as well for your audience to consume, you can also share that with the sales team. Maybe they won't want to read it, but they might be willing to listen to it on a podcast and learn it better that way, or watch videos on it as well. And I think that's probably the main thing. All of the ways that you create and break down the ebook to promote it externally, you can use to promote it internally and give the sales team as many different ways as possible to consume the information so that they can talk about it confidently and comprehensively with the prospects.
Amazing. So finally then, if we were to think about it the other way, so if you've decided to ungate your ebook and make it all freely accessible, how would you then think about nurturing that audience?
Yeah, and I think you nurture that audience then through your value loops, as we discussed in the other episode. So I think because you don't have the tangible email address and you don't have the contact information of what you'd get from if it was gated and you got that download, people assume that you can't actually nurture the audience. You can nurture the audience, but you nurture them through other ways of consistent value of them receiving it. So that means you want to get those customers in some ways subscribed to a podcast, subscribed to your newsletter. You want to keep the content on there, fresh, exciting ways that people can interact. And then that means that people will come back and keep and almost nurture themselves, that they're getting the repeated value from your ebook. It leads them onto different value loops that they then go back to get even more value in. Maybe there's action points in the ebook or like specific information that you build out in a way that is, delivers value really well, that people keep coming back to maybe recheck over those points. Or maybe there's a graphic in there that's like perfect to be used in people's own presentation decks, so then they come back to the ebook to be able to copy and download those assets or something. And you can provide different ways that the ebook itself becomes a value loop and nurtures the client and brings them back to you and learning from you.
Great. So you've essentially got like your different channels, your different formats, and I guess moving away from that more traditional approach of like sending the same email, like, hi, here's an ebook, hi, we've released this ebook. It's almost being like more creative with like how you're explaining that from different points of view or different angles, I guess.
Yeah, so they exactly, they'll be coming back to the ebook to get value from there, but then they might see value from it in feed as you do organic promotion on LinkedIn or paid promotion or of like those topics and assets. They then might find you talking about something similar on YouTube or on a podcast, and then they get looped into those value loops, and they're therefore you're appearing in all of the spaces that they play in, and nurturing them as they go, without it just relying on what would be an email nurture, which is just one channel and one method of reaching people.
Amazing, makes sense. And then the final point on this would be, in terms of nurturing that audience that you have, would be almost like thinking beyond just sending them to a landing page. So I know at Cognism we've been thinking about this a lot recently. So we've sent an email or we've spoken about it on a podcast and we've said visit this landing page to consume the full content. But then there are things you can do on those pages to continue that value-led journey, I think. So how, I guess if you can explain like how we've been doing that with tools like Mutiny and Qualified and things like that.
Yeah, so you can create loads of different ways of like driving people to the next experience that may be of interest to them. So for example, like we use tools like Mutiny to like create pop-ups at certain different levels of like scroll depth that might push them to like the next topic that will be of interest for them if they've got that far down the page. We can use like our chatbot like Qualified to like display messages to certain companies that we know may find additional like information or content helpful, and it will pop up and like suggest that to them or point them in those directions. So you can build like whole different sort of like web journeys where you're like tailoring the message, which you could do with Mutiny as well, and push those people to other bits of content that will be of value and keep them sort of like involved on the website.
Amazing, thank you so much. Great. So that's it for this episode, and the 5th and final episode is going to be around measuring the success of your ebook.